Good morning, Comto. We are very happy this morning to have you all with us, and more importantly, to have the Secretary of Transportation, the Honorable Anthony Foxx. So please, excuse me, the Chairman of the Board, Mr. Bob Prince, who's going to do the roll call of chapters.
Good morning. Arizona, Atlanta, Austin, Birmingham, Boston, Central Florida, Chicago, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Colorado State, Columbus, Dallas, Delaware, Fort Lauderdale, Houston, Indiana, Jacksonville, Kansas City, Maryland, Miami, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Northern California, Oregon Southwest, Philadelphia, San Antonio, Southern California, St. Louis, and Washington, D.C. I would like to call this meeting to order. And I want to take this time to recognize our sponsors, AECOM, CH2M, and PB. Without all these sponsors, these meetings wouldn't be able to happen. So we would truly appreciate them to being here. And first up to give a welcome is Matthew Cummings. He is the Executive Vice President for AECOM. Matt?
Thank you, Bob. It's great to be here. Thanks on behalf of AECOM for all the great work. The Colonel told me that I was going to have to say something about 10 seconds ago, so I'm really impressed. I've learned a lot over the last day that I've been here and met some really awesome young people. So I just want to commend Comto for the work that everybody does to develop our young talent. I mean, it's the right thing to do, and it's important for all of us. I look at where I was, Matt, in 1985, was, we've come a long way. So we've got some really, really switched on individuals, and I'm happy for all the work that we can do to support. I want to thank our friend Bob, who's done great work for Comto and AECOM, and he constantly keeps us connected to the mission of Comto. So thanks a lot, Bob.
We'd like to also have remarks from CH2M and their representative, because I think Terry Rule is gone.
Thank you for having us here. As a firm of 26,000 people with operations in 40 countries, or more than 40 countries, we really value diversity. We embrace and value the mission of Comto. I've also met a number of great young people here. We enjoy and support your mission in succession planning, developing the next wave of employees, and building a more diverse workforce. So thank you for having us here.
And now it is indeed my pleasure to welcome a longtime friend of mine and the Honorable Mayor of Boston, Mr. Martin Walsh.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank Bob Prince for his service to Greater Boston, but in particular his service as the general manager of the MBTA. When I first got into politics 18 years ago, I was elected to the House of Representatives, and I represented Dorchester, and one of the first things I was able to get in the budget is a sound wall for some of my neighborhood. And Bob Prince, then the general manager of the MBTA, helped me shepherd that through the process, and it taught me a lot about how to work in the transportation field. But throughout the years, we've stayed very close, and he is a great friend, and I know he's a vital to this profession as the national chairman of Comto. So I want to thank Robert Prince for his great work here. I know he's going to be in a few minutes. I want to recognize United States Transportation Secretary Anthony Foxx, who's been such a good friend, not only to Boston, but to Massachusetts over the years. And I want to thank him when he comes in here, as well as the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Transportation Secretary Stephanie Pollock. I want to thank Secretary Pollock as well. I also want to thank Comto's president, Celia Blue, our former registrar here in Boston, in Massachusetts, and now as an advisor to Secretary Pollock. So I want to thank Celia for her great work here in the state of Massachusetts. And just a few other shout-outs. One is we have the chairman of transportation in the Massachusetts Senate here with us, Tom McGee. I want to thank with us this morning. I want to thank Tom McGee for being here. We have my state senator and also a senator who is not just concerned about transportation, but so many other different areas around diversity as well. And that's Senator Linda DeCina-Fori is with us this morning. I want to thank Senator. We have a former colleague of mine from the House of Representatives, from Dorchester, Mattapan, Hyde Park, State Representative Russell Holmes, who's also here with us this morning. We have the Commissioner of Transportation in the City of Boston with us, Gina Fiandaca. I want to thank Commissioner Fiandaca for being here today. Fiandaca, excuse me. And we have the Chief of Economic Development for the City of Boston, John Barrows. Chief Barrows is with us this morning. And I think it's important to name these people because it shows you the commitment, how serious that we're taking this conference being here in the City of Boston. We have top officials from our economic development. We have our top official from transportation. And I know throughout the course of the day, we're going to have other officials from the city coming over here, as well as from the state. So we're very happy that this conference is here. I want to welcome everyone to Boston. I hope you've had a wonderful conference so far. I heard the New Yorkers cheering there. You know, I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not going to talk much about it. We're not too happy. I was envisioning 3 games out of first, not 6, so it's all right. We'll figure out what happens. But I want to welcome you all, because what you're going to do here, the knowledge that you're going to build, the relationships you're going to build, are vital for your field of work. And I want to thank you for that. Given the status of our nation's infrastructure, we need transportation officials to be even smarter than ever. So it's important for you to have these conversations. In all seriousness, there are 2 important pieces of this conference being held here in the City of Boston. First, we have recently launched in the city our first citywide planning process in over 50 years called Imagine Boston 2030. Boston is growing. Our population has surpassed 655,000 people last year. It's the first time since the 1960s that we've had this many people living in our city. We currently have under construction right now over $7 billion worth of development in our city here in the City of Boston. Transportation will play a critical role in every aspect of a vision as we build a new city. Right now, Congress is not willing or able to commit national infrastructure investment to the sufficient needs that are needed, not just here in the city, but throughout the country. This has to change, but we're not going to wait for help here in the City of Boston. The drive and the innovation America needs to create a 21st century infrastructure starts in cities like the cities that you represent. It starts with officials like you. So moving together, we have to be more innovative, we have to be more resilient, and we have to understand what our communities need to get to schools, get to work, and to build our economy. That community is peace is essential. Transportation is a field where you can see historic injustice written into the landscape in terms of where or how the infrastructure got built. So our roads and rails, our sidewalks and cycle tracks are not just about moving people from point A to point B. They represent our values and our priorities. They should be about upward mobility, and they should be about us towards a more just and equal society. When we listen to and serve all of our communities, that brings me to my second reason for this conference is so good for our city. It's a sign of progress when a major professional organization for people of color chooses our city. It didn't always happen. So you being here is symbolic. It's also a catalyst. It supports our efforts to diversify the leadership, not just in transportation, but in every sector. This is one of my priorities I'm committed to as mayor. We have to ensure that city government reflects the people of our city. We started by making sure that diversity was in my cabinet, in my police command staff, but we knew there were large gaps in the department level and throughout the organization. So last year, we created the Office of Diversity in my administration, and I appointed City Hall's first ever Chief Diversity Officer. This office will increase representation in hiring, retention, and career development. It's already giving us vital data about what we need and who we are. The needs are early in the process, and opportunities that we need to work on to make sure that leads to management positions. And that's true in the private sector as well. Those pipelines to leadership can't begin early enough. We have to start in our schools by making sure our kids have access to academic programs that lead them to college and career success. For transportation, as for many other fields, that starts with science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM fields. It also is a big focus on bringing all of those different specialties to the Boston Public Schools. We are looking into and how we increase access to advanced work programs that starts in grade school. We're designing a new STEAM high school in the heart of Roxbury. We are partnering with nonprofits to bring facilities like 3D print labs and startup incubators into our schools right now. Summertime is also a vital piece of the puzzle in summer jobs and learning opportunities. No cities hire as many teenagers as we do during the summer around where we are as far as size. And we are one of the few cities that challenge our private sector to hire teens, to help them do it, but we want to do more. Just so you get an understanding, this summer we're going to hire about 10,500 teens in the city of Boston. About 3,500, 3,800 are going to be hired through city and state money. 7,000 plus are going to be private companies that are willing to put young people to work. So those young people get an opportunity. These companies get a benefit. They get a benefit, number one, to hire teens, but also mentor teens. And I know many of you are leaders in this area, mentoring the next generation of leaders. That's also important for us to do. I want to thank you for that work. I encourage you to expand it as you go home to your different cities. Reach out to your colleagues in government and private sector. Do not be afraid to ask them. Do not be afraid to ask them to do more. So ask them first and then ask them to do more after you get them. It shouldn't fall on organizations like yours. It's everyone's responsibility. It's not just about a paycheck, it's about a workplace. Student interns work in professional and technical environments they would never otherwise would see. And they meet adults they would never otherwise meet. That's how careers are launched and leaders are made. That's why I'd like to see Comto return back to Boston in the next 5 years or maybe 10 years. And even more members, you'll have more members, that you'll be more influential than this organization already is today. And that's how we'll see our nation fully understand and solve the transportation challenges that face us in the 21st century. I just want to, again, thank you for being here today. I'm thrilled that you're in the city of Boston. I remember being at the first meeting we had, the organizational meeting, and we were talking about how we're going to put this together. And really, just watching what's happened, I can feel the energy in this room today. I want to thank you for choosing Boston. I hope you enjoy this conference, and I just feel free, particularly the Yankee fans out there, spend as much money as you want. We'll get you one way or the other. Thank you.
I'd like to now bring to the stage Comto's president, Celia Blue.
Good morning. I just want to first recognize the Comto board and committee for doing an amazing job, and can you please stand quickly to get a round of applause? A lot of them out. It gives me great pleasure this morning to introduce to you my boss, Secretary of Transportation here in the Commonwealth, Stephanie Pollack. She is known for being a progressive thinker, smart, forward-looking, and fully engaged in thinking creatively about mobility issues. I give you Secretary Pollack.
Good morning and welcome to Boston and the Commonwealth. For what I'm hearing, everyone has been having a wonderful conference, enjoying our Commonwealth and our capital city, and I hope you'll continue to do so. I want to welcome you formally on behalf of Governor Charlie Baker and Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito. I want to thank my honorary co-chair, Mayor Walsh, who's done an exceptional job. I also want to welcome you on behalf of the men and women of the Massachusetts Department of Transportation and the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority. For those of you who hadn't heard, we had quite a winter here in Massachusetts, and there was a lot of stress testing that went on for our transportation system, and we learned a lot about where we need to do a better job, but we also learned a lot about the amazing men and women who make our system work every day. And I want you to know that both of those agencies, as well as our Registry of Motor Vehicles and all the other agencies that are part of the consolidated Massachusetts Department of Transportation, are places where we welcome talented, diverse individuals, and where we need to make them not just places that comply with legal requirements about civil rights or diversity, but places where we make it possible for everyone to succeed, because that's what makes it possible for our agencies to succeed. So the mission of Comto really is the mission of the Massachusetts Transportation Agencies, which is to create an industry which is broad and deep and talented and diverse, and where we mentor the next generation of leadership. And that will be more important than ever in Massachusetts as we move ahead, having just lost hundreds of employees to a statewide early retirement program. You know, Mayor Walsh mentioned the planning process, the very exciting Go Boston 2030 and Imagine Boston planning processes that are going in. And we in the transportation profession are used to doing long-range planning processes. We usually plan 25 years out. We have all of the metropolitan planning organizations in Massachusetts this year are doing their 25-year plans. And I often say, you know, the reason we do 25-year plans in transportation is because it takes us 25 years to get anything done. But that's not the real reason we should be thinking 25 years in the future about the year 2040. And in fact, we shouldn't be planning for the year 2040. We should be planning backward from the year 2040. And in the year 2040, the leaders, not just in our profession, not just in our agencies, but in our cities and states and in the nation's capital, they're the very young people that this conference is focused on. It is my sincere hope that 25 years from now, I will still be riding the fixed guideway part of the MBTA system with my senior discount, or possibly taking advantage of the paratransit system, but I won't be in a leadership position anymore. 25 years from now, the leaders will be the young people who are just starting their careers in our profession, or who are still in college or even high school. And that is why there can be no such thing as focusing too much on our youth. So we focus on youth at MassDOT like Comto focuses on youth. We have a wonderful program which Dr. Scott launched, and she was here, which I had the pleasure of launching with a group of youth, where we're partnering with 4 communities to provide need-tested, deeply discounted passes, transit passes to our youth. We have a wonderful pre-apprenticeship program to help youth get into the apprentice programs in the construction trades. That can be their ticket. We have a terrific partnership with the Somerville Community Corporation to make sure that the jobs we're creating as we build our New Starts program, the Green Line, are made widely available to a diverse group of workers, including workers from the communities that will benefit from that transit investment. The hallmark of all those programs is not just the focus on youth, it is the fact that they are partnerships. And at the end of the day, in order to succeed, we in transportation need to partner more, always, with anyone who will partner with us. And Comto is one of the most important partners that any of us in transportation can have. So I want to thank you for coming to the conference. I want to urge you, while you are here, to enjoy Boston and Massachusetts, to meet the youth who are going to be the future of our profession, and to think about the many ways in which, as we leave, we can all partner together to build a greater future, not just for transportation, because in the end, the future we build is not for transportation. It's for our communities, it's for our young people, it's for our economy. Thank you all for coming to Boston.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. It brings me great pleasure to introduce to you the Honorable Rodney Slater, former Secretary of U.S. Department of Transportation and partner with Patton Barnes and Squire. Rodney?
To Chairman Prince, to President Moses, to the members of Comto, to all who have gathered with you over the last few days to make this event possible, to Dr. Ogletree and the wonderful leaders at the Harvard Law School who worked with you on Sunday or on Saturday to discuss the issue of youth, to those who gathered with you on yesterday to put forth a wonderful program you had, and then this morning, the legislative session, and those who gather with you now to welcome to your number the #1 transportation leader in our country and one of the leaders of transportation in the world. Secretary Foxx, we are honored that you would come to this organization. And on a personal note, an organization that has meant so much to me personally. I dare say that there was nothing that we were able to achieve that did not involve the thoughts, the ideas, the suggestions of Comto. And during some of my most difficult hours, there was no time when I could not feel the warmth and the presence of Comto. I say that because, Mr. Secretary, I think that that's exactly what you will need as you put forth your vision for transportation, looking beyond traffic and looking beyond the next 10, 15, 20 years, as you implement fully your Ladders initiative, inspiring people to not just think about today, but to think about tomorrow, and to commit themselves to excellence and to vigilance, as you work with the Congress to move forth major pieces of transportation legislation. And when I just think about the $478 billion that are being proposed by you and the President, and reflect on the fact that our bill was only about $200 billion, I say again that we have the kind of transportation leadership that we need, not only in the office of the Secretary, but we have with him the support that he needs in the White House with the President and the Vice President. We are most fortunate to be together at this point and at this stage of our nation's development. And we are most blessed to be led by a leader with the insight, the sense of purpose, and the commitment to excellence that we have in Secretary Foxx. It is said of David, King David, that he served the purpose of God in his generation. That is the kind of leader that we have, one who is committed to serving those who live in this generation. He has done it as mayor, and now he does it at the highest level as a member of the President's cabinet, as Secretary of Transportation. Please join me in bringing into our fold a member of our family, the Honorable Anthony Foxx, Secretary of the United States Department of Transportation. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. First, protocol having been established, let me thank my predecessor, Secretary Rodney Slater. You know, we stand on the shoulders of those before us, and there is no question that I'm standing on the shoulders of Secretary Slater, and I want to thank him for his great leadership, and in a reference to what he said, I want him to know that I don't stop thinking about tomorrow. That's a reference, by the way, to your administration. To Mayoshi Moses, your new Comto president. She's 10 days into the job, so she knows what she's doing now. Fully expect you just to keep on throttling forward. And to your great Comto leadership. I want to thank all the members of Comto for everything you do, for your advocacy, for your work, for the work that you do to advance transportation. I was thinking just a moment ago about a poem that I read in junior high school, and it stayed with me pretty much through now. But as I look across this room, and I think about how much progress has already been made, it reminds me of this poem. I too sing America. I'm the darker brother. They send me to the kitchen to eat when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. No one will say to me, eat in the kitchen, then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. For I too am America. That's this room. That's America. So let me just lay out a couple of ideas here, and I think we're going to save some time for some dialogue, because I've told my staff that I'm tired of speaking. You talk about stuff for so long, but really the issues that we need to talk about are on your minds already. But I'm going to try to get us started a little bit. You know, some of the issues that you and I deal with in transportation have historically been marginalized. They've been kind of niche issues in transportation. And yet, the issues that you deal with every day have everything to do with how this country is going to move forward. I'm reminded of going down to Birmingham, Alabama recently, and having the mayor, Mayor Bell down there, talk to me about a bridge that was built in Birmingham, Alabama that literally cut off the black community. Or in Columbus, Ohio, where a freeway did the same thing, cutting off a part of the Columbus community from opportunities in the central business district. And today, that interstate is now being capped, and they're trying to put a new connection to restore the connection that was lost. But ladies and gentlemen, we must not assume that a transportation system that has been developed over hundreds of years doesn't have the issues of the day, the philosophy of the day, the ideas of the day embedded in it. The signs are there as clear as day. And yet, in this young century, we have a responsibility and an obligation to turn the page on that history, to create a new vision of how transportation can become more inclusive, how it can connect more communities, how it can lift people up who are trying to get into the middle class and keep people who are struggling to stay in the middle class there. I see examples of this all the time. A bus rapid transit system in Richmond, Virginia. You know, between the hours of 7:30 and 9:30 in Richmond, Virginia, the ability of someone in one part of Richmond to reach the other part where the jobs are is very limited. Less than 25% of the population has transit access to those jobs. And so we've given Richmond a Tiger grant to create a bus rapid transit system that will move that number from 25% to almost 60%. We're focusing on places where people need a shot. Now, you may say, Mr. Secretary, that sounds all good, but why do you care? Let me tell you why I care. I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina. Let me tell you, when I was born, nobody would have told you that was the future Secretary of Transportation. My mother was 19 years old. I lived with my grandparents through my formative years. And when I looked out the window, the first thing I saw was a big fence. And on the other side of that fence was I-85. I walked out of the front door and turned to the right. The next thing I saw 2 blocks up was another fence. That was I-77. 10 years before I was born, those were neighborhoods. But what I saw was literally the evidence of an infrastructure system that had boxed me in. So I grew up in a neighborhood that had one way in, one way out. And for me, the one way out was education. I was grateful for the opportunities that I had, but let me tell you, I am focused on making sure that every single American, no matter where they live, has an opportunity at the American dream, just like I did. So I'm going to run through a couple of quick points. First, folks, we are less than 3 weeks away from the latest extension of the highway bill running out. It's like Groundhog Day. This is the 33rd extension by my count. And you know what this means. You know because you're in this business. You know that you got any 2-month projects out there? Any projects you can start and end in 2 months? You got any 10-month projects? We're tearing the country up. We're tearing the country up. And yet, in Washington, when an extension gets signed, people celebrate. Man, this is great. See what we did? Let me tell you what we did. We have fully 2/3 of our bridges in this country that are substandard. We have congestion that is increasing in many of our major metropolitan areas. Anybody ridden over a pothole lately? This is a country that for generations led the world, the Transcontinental Railroad, the interstate system. The 21st century demands that we renew the commitment that previous generations made to us, that we're going to ensure that the next generation has an even more efficient, an even safer, and a more effective way to move themselves and move goods so that they can capture the opportunities of the future. That's why the President and I introduced the Grow America Act. And by the way, thank you for the title of this conference. If you just took off 3 letters, you would have gotten it exactly right. It's called the Grow America Act. It's called the Grow America Act. The Grow America Act is a 21st century bill. 45% more investment in our nation's infrastructure. For the first time, it would put rail, transit, and highways under the trust fund. would pump $478 billion into our system, 70% increase for transit, 29% increase for highways. And it would provide us with what we really need, which is certainty, so that we can get off the sidelines and start building this country again. So we're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep pushing. But we need you pushing too. We need you telling your members of Congress what's not getting done, what jobs aren't being created, and what people aren't being put to work, and what kinds of things could be happening in this country if we just took a moment to build the future. We also are working in the department on some initiatives that I want you to know about. Empowering communities through connectivity, we launched a pilot. It's called Ladder Step. The president's phrase, ladders of opportunity, is a euphemism for this effort to help people reach into the middle class and folks who want to stay there to stay. We launched this pilot in the following American cities: Atlanta, Baltimore, Baton Rouge, Indianapolis, Phoenix, Richmond, and Charlotte. We did this because we want to test the idea that when you do an infrastructure project in a community, that it has transformative power. So we went to 7 mayors in these different cities and we said, show us a project that would help increase opportunity for folks who are struggling to find it. They gave us projects, and we're trying to provide the technical assistance to help them get those projects done. We're working to remove barriers to opportunity. We read just a few months ago about a gentleman who was walking 21 miles in Detroit because the bus system was so unreliable. This is a fleet that had enough buses, but half of them were just in such a poor state of condition. So the U.S. Department of Transportation launched a Ladders of Opportunity Notice of Funding Availability to identify projects around the country in transit that would promote access. Well, Detroit received $25 million. That $25 million is restoring their bus fleet. And God knows, I hope we don't have folks walking 21 miles to get a job because their transit system is broken. We're going to fix America with a longer-term bill. We're working to create safer streets. You know, when I was a mayor of Charlotte, as I was leaving, we were seeing the spate of pedestrian and bicycle injuries and deaths. In fact, there was one incident where a father was walking his children on a street that didn't have sidewalks. And he came upon a part of the street where the brush had run into the side of the road, and so just for a moment, he took the kids out into the street. And they were hit and died. We're finding that the pedestrian death rate for Hispanics is 62% higher than non-Hispanics, and the rate for African Americans is 73% higher. And so when we focus on our Safer Streets, Safer People initiative, this is about trying to create an opportunity not only for folks to have access, but frankly for folks to be safe and to get home. We're working on increasing our opportunities to plan, to make sure that the investments that are made in infrastructure are supporting this focus on helping people get opportunities. We see that through the Beyond Traffic study we did, that this country is growing by 70 million people, and one of the trends that we've seen that is being highlighted in the comment period the most is the fact that this rising income inequality issue is a real issue for America, and it's an issue for transportation. So often when these projects get done or get planned, the ones that are going to create the best access points for folks are the ones that are the last ones to be put on the list and sometimes the first ones to be cut. For example, you all know about the issues in Baltimore. We've had just in recent months. Well, there's a big project in Baltimore called the Red Line that was on the books and isn't on the books anymore. That's an example of what I'm talking about, but it's not the only one. And so making sure that communities have effective and meaningful ways to input into the transit and transportation plans of their communities, of their states, so they have a voice, is also part of the work we're doing. We're working to build a 21st century transportation and workforce. I want to thank Comto, frankly, for helping us with a youth initiative where we're trying to create more pathways for young people to have internships and opportunities. You know, so many young people have come up to me who are doing some of these internships, and they said, you know, I never would have thought about a transportation career. But because I've had this exposure, I really want to get involved in transportation. I don't know if Keith Parker's here from MARTA, but where are you, Keith? Keith has a great story about growing up in Virginia and getting his first job in transportation, and look at him now. He's running a transit agency. That's what I'm talking about. And finally, we're looking to expand the local workforce. Folks, we've got an exciting pilot with local hiring so that when projects are being done, folks can work where they live. It's a pretty simple idea, and it's one that we believe in, and we're going to make this pilot as successful as possible. So these are just a few things we're doing at DOT to create more opportunities, and I know there's lots of opportunities for us to talk and have an exchange, but I want to thank you so much, and I want you to know that deep down inside, there's still that little boy looking out his grandparents' window, and over the next 18 months, my job is to make sure that instead of seeing fences, we have young people who are seeing horizons. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, who's going to play Oprah? Okay. I don't know how this is. Here we go.
Here I come. Got the mic. Scanning. I'm Dr. Barbara Gannon. I'm so pleased you're here. Comto appreciates so much the support the administration and you have all done to help develop the workforce. I'm interested in how do we bring transportation and education together? Do you have any ideas to integrate transportation into K through 12 education and technical schools?
Well, it's a great question. I think the easiest connection is at the community college level, where we can do a lot working with the Department of Labor and with the Department of Education to promote transportation career paths. In K through 12, this is a place where I think we've got to really dig in with some of the mentorships and some of the apprenticeships that we could create. You know, the reality is we have a percentage of young people who are motivated and focused and they have a sense of what they want to accomplish. But there's a wide swath of very capable young people who are still trying to figure it out. And when they get an opportunity to get exposed to a career path in transportation, you never know when the light bulb's going to go off for them. So I would just say that the efforts that Comto's making and some of the sponsors, we've got to deepen that. We need to have a huge effort towards getting young people in that K through 12 area exposed to transportation career paths. They use transportation every day. They need to think about it as a possibility for them going forward.
Secretary Foxx, Dana Lemon. I serve on the board for the Georgia Department of Transportation and also a fellow Davidson alumnus.
I knew I liked you when I saw you. Steph Curry, y'all.
All day long.
Sorry.
My question is, and it was mentioned earlier in our earlier session about telling the story of the significance of transportation and creating communities. As you mentioned in your own community in Charlotte, how that transportation infrastructure decision changed your experience on a day-to-day basis. How do we tell the story, though, Secretary Foxx, outside of this room? We tell each other the story, and we've told Congress the story. So them knowing what's going on is not the issue. How do we tell the story outside of that audience so that we can, in fact, begin to strongly encourage them to do what's in the best interest of their constituents and actually making some decisions that impact their day-to-day lives? Not just saying the words, but actually doing something, and not telling each other the story, because we all know what the challenges are. Yeah. How do we move that beyond where we are today effectively so that we can get it done?
It's a great question. I think it's easier to say it in the negative than to say it in the affirmative. In other words, we can look at mistakes that have happened in the course of history when it comes to transportation and point to them. But I think really one of the biggest challenges we have is creating more affirmative cases, more cases of where it gets done right. And that's what I'm continuing to sort of hammer on my team is that, I'll give you an example. There is a practice, with highway noise barriers in some states where if you vote yes in your neighborhood for a barrier, that's a yes. If you vote no, it's a no. If you don't vote, it's a yes. And, I may be simple, I may be off the turnip truck, but, a vote is a vote to me. Like, I want to vote. And so I've tried to make sure that our team ensures that our public input processes are strong and robust and that they are meaningful. But even beyond that, I think we need projects. We need actual projects in the ground in this country that point a 21st century direction. I'll give you one example of one that I can think of is the light rail project in Compton, Los Angeles, which is not only, thank you, it's not only an example of a project that is going to re-energize an area that's been historically underserved. It's also an example of people working in their backyard. There's a young lady out there, Ladea Epps, who has 3 kids, and for all I know, probably had to take 2 or 3 transfers to get to work before. On a lark, she went and signed up to potentially work on this site. Didn't think she'd have a chance because she was a woman. She's now working on that site. And she's working close to home, which gives her time back that she didn't have before. And by the way, she says now more women need to work on projects because they do them better. So, But we need more stories like that. And by the way, those stories don't come from Washington. They come from communities that say, hey, this project needs to happen. And until it happens, we're going to keep beating the walls down. That gives us the leverage to help make those projects happen.
For today, our special guest has limited time. So if you're still interested in submitting your questions, please place them in the middle of the tables. We will collect them and try to get them answered in a different forum. Thank you again for your participation today. Mr. Prince will continue the program.
One more?
One more?
One more. Hold on, one more. We got one more.
Okay.
We got one more.
Good morning.
One more. We'll do one more. Do one more.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Secretary Foxx. I'm Claudia Leaf, city intern here in Boston, working at FTA Region 1.
All right.
I have a question on behalf of the city interns and youth. What can we do as college students to push for the reprioritization of transportation?
Oh, wow. What a great question. What a great question. let me say at the outset what may be obvious, which is that, you know, I feel like I'm a fairly young guy. But almost nothing I'm doing on a daily basis is for something I plan to use. It's really for you. The decisions that are being made right now are decisions that are going to impact your future. And I think it is very important for young people to raise their voices on the issues that are right in front of us. The fact that we have not had a 6-year transportation bill in almost a decade is going to be a bill that this country is going to expect you to pay. And that's not fair to you. So I would just say I'd love to see college kids, young people, starting to raise their voices through social media, direct calls in to members of Congress, really laying out for them that this is a bill that shouldn't be paid by future generations. It ought to be paid right now so we can build the country you need to be successful in the future. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Like Flash.
I must say, it doesn't get much better than that. Thank you again, Mr. Secretary. You know, without further ado, I'd like to bring up a friend, a partner. You know, he's been more than, I mean, I got to say this from the bottom of my heart. PB has been a long-term partner of Comto, part of the intricate fabric of the family here. And to represent and to speak on behalf of PB, I'd like to bring up Adele Nwako.
We are so pleased to co-sponsor this event. Bob is right. PB is a long-term sponsor, and we cherish the opportunity. I hope you've learned something today, and I hope the rest of the conference will be meaningful to you. We at PB strongly commit to Comto, to East Mission, to our young people, to our colleagues. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Well, with that, we're actually almost back on time. And as most of you know who know me, I'm a guy that likes to be on time. So with that note, I'd like to say thank you for being here this morning, and I appreciate your attention. I appreciate you being here, and please attend all the sessions. Have a good morning. Thank you.